Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Innovation in Insurance, How Technology is Reshaping the Insurance Experience. My name is Sean Kennedy. I'm a Principal Digital Architect and Senior Director of Applied Technology at Globant, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. I've been in the technology industry for about 15 years, and many of those years have been spent consulting with the insurance industry or with insurance companies. I've been in the insurance industry for most of my life. Between my uncle, two aunts, my mother, my father, my stepfather, and now a cousin, they've had whole careers in the industry, and it's been a subject of many dinner time conversations, as well as many family reunion picnics. Joining me today, we have Steve Peltzer from Euler Hermes. Steve is based in Paris and will share with us the customer experience transformation that they've undertaken and continue to undertake at Euler Hermes. We also have Matthew Walsh from Metromile. Matt is based in Phoenix and will share with us how Metromile is using automation and intelligence to improve their claims experience. Now, before we begin, it's my duty and my honor to frame the topic of innovation in insurance. But before I even get to that, there are two questions I'm hearing even over the imposed silence of the webinar setup. What is Globant, and why are you talking to us about innovation in insurance? Globant is a pure play in the digital and cognitive space. We don't have a traditional organizational hierarchy and the overhead. We've grown up working with brands and organizations that are truly innovating in their industries. We're disruptors in professional services. We're the place where engineering, innovation, and design meet at scale. We leverage the latest technologies and methodologies in digital and cognitive to help organizations transform in every aspect. We create software products that emotionally connect our customers with millions of consumers, employees, and agents and partners, and we work with them to improve their efficiency. Now, we are here to talk to you about insurance too, and we're doing that because we've partnered with our clients in the insurance industry for many years, and while we ourselves are not experts in insurance, we think that more than ever, those in the industry need partners who are experts in understanding and applying new technologies and creating new experiences. Insurance has always been a virtual, yet highly emotional product. There's always been a natural fit for the kinds of digital transformation we've seen revolutionize other industries. But unlike retail, entertainment, software, services, etc., regulation, licensing, complexity, and a general lack of understanding among the public of how the industry and its products work have protected it from previous rounds of transformation. This is ending, or maybe it already has ended. Startups are building businesses based on new models from the ground up. Traditional insurers are partnering, or experimenting with new models. And they're also partnering with tech giants to create new solutions and new offerings. Life, health, home, auto, specialty lines, reinsurance, marine, inland marine, financial instruments and trade, all the insurances and their delivery are not just evolving, but being transformed. I think we're experiencing an inflection point in the industry, enabled and accelerated by technology and a new focus on experience. This is going to make the industry look an order of magnitude difference 10 years from now than today's industry looks compared to 10 years ago. And the future industry leaders will be those that apply technology to most effectively actualize the latent potential of insurance as a virtual product to meet policyholder needs on their own terms. While technology changes can provide their own challenges, they make possible the processes interactions, and products that we see today that were previously impossible. Combined with market changes and evolving expectations of all the people who interact with your business can't stand still. Based on our experience in and research of the insurance industry, we see these 4 trends driving the need to innovate and transform. Automated underwriting and claims processing, flexible and personalized insurance products, simplicity and transparency, on demand and real time, visibility, connectivity, and augmented intelligence. With our speakers today, we'll see some concrete examples of how a focus on simplicity and personalization at Euler Hermes, as well as investments in automation and intelligence at Metromile, are already well underway and enabling a meaningful impact in those businesses. In both cases, we'll see the value of starting with a customer experience perspective and get a glimpse of how a successful transformation requires a fearless commitment to transforming the processes, systems, and organizational culture through which that experience is delivered. Indeed, we think culture is the foundation of your success. It supports the pillars of a sustainable, high-impact, high-performing digital organization that not only weathers the storms of the economy and market, but makes its own waves in the industry. If you look for it, you will find implicit in today's talks some expression of the cultural strengths of each of Euler Hermes and Metromile. This digital maturity framework you see represented on the screen is something we've been developing since this summer based on our experiences with our customers across many industries, including insurance, from our research and from the expertise of our own people. At our recent Converge New York conference, we offered attendees the opportunity to take a quick digital maturity self-assessment on an iPad app. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and the conversations generated with us and those that inspired attendees to bring back to their teams were meaningful and substantive. We are currently converting it into a web app, and once we complete it, I look forward to sharing it with all of you to try out for yourself. But now it's time to come into the main event. First up is Steve Peltzer from Euler Hermes, who will take you through how they transformed the customer experience and took a 100-year-plus B2B insurer into the 21st century. Steve has 16 years experience in insurance and has worked in both IT, operational, and commercial roles. Steve has qualifications in UX design, software engineering, agile development, project and program management, and marketing. Steve is based at the head office in Paris, working as the head of product and services, and is working on new services that enhance customer experience as well as developing new products. A reminder before I give it all the way over to Steve is to use the QA tool that you'll find in your Zoom bar to submit any questions as we go. We'll work through those questions after the presentation. Steve, it's for you.
Thank you, Sean, for your introduction. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so it's a real pleasure for me to be here today because this is a topic that's actually very close to my heart. I'm delighted to be able to present this to you. It's been around about 3 years we've been working on this, and we had a really strong objective to transform the experience for our customers. But before I go into what we did and how we did it, I just wanted to go back to when we started the project and look at what our life was like for Euler Hermes customers. Okay. So we know in 2019 that everyone expects the same level of experience they get from Amazon, Apple, and Google. This isn't new. And of course, great experiences are all around us. People are used to services they get from Uber, from Netflix. Every single airline carrier now will offer an online check-in experience. Even your local restaurant can offer a great digital experience by partnering with platforms like Uber Eats or Deliveroo, etc. But the reality for our customers in 2019 was they were using a portal that was 18 years old. And when we communicated on this internally recently, it was interesting for me to sort of take a look back at what the world was like in 2001. And what you saw was Tony Blair and George Bush were in charge of the UK and the US. Netflix were posting new DVDs through the mail. There was no Facebook, and it was still 6 years before the first iPhone came out. So, strangely enough, our customers weren't too concerned about the functionality of the site, but we were getting a lot of feedback around the experience. You can see it looks like from the DOS age or Windows 98. So we had this high ambition internally to deliver something great to the market. We had high expectations from customers, but we actually had a very, very low starting point. So as Sean said, my name is Steve Peltzer. I'm in charge of products and services at Euler Hermes. And just before I take you through what we did and how we did it and share some of the tips, I would just like to explain a little bit around Euler Hermes and what CX means for us. So Euler Hermes is part of Allianz, the world's biggest insurance company. We are a pure specialist in B2B insurance against the non-payment of invoices. So it sounds quite technical, but actually it provides a huge value for the companies that work for us, because accounts payable or money owed for services already provided cannot be around about 50% of the company's assets. So it's actually providing a very, very valuable insurance to them. We are worldwide. We have nearly 6,000 staff in 55 countries. We've got between 55 and 60,000 customers across all our business lines, mostly around trade credit insurance, which is our core business. And we are the market leader in what we do. So when we looked at this, why was CX important for us? Actually, unlike traditional P&C insurance where you buy it, you renew the policy, and maybe you file a claim or maybe you don't, we actually have a very, very high touch point product. So what we realized was that actually creates many opportunities to get it wrong and for inconsistencies to surface and frustrate the customer. We have by nature a complex product. That's not something that we design ourselves. It's actually something that customers ask from us because they have complex needs. What they don't ask for, though, is the complex processes that we introduce. So we had some challenges to try and simplify the way we delivered the services that our customers requested. And for us as well, there was a need to differentiate. I mean, for insurance companies, we're all trying to move away from having discussions only around price and coverage. And for us, customer experience was really a way to differentiate because of the high touch points and because of the complexity. So our ambition when we started was really to transform the customer experience. It was not to take what we do and make it better. It wasn't to take this online platform and put it onto a new one. It really was to make a big transformational difference to our customers and also our brokers. We also wanted to simplify, but without being simplistic. And it's, as I said, there's a lot of value in the complexity we offer, and what we needed to do was to keep the complexity, but simplify the way customers access it. We needed to remove the unnecessary steps, and we needed to take our complexity out and allow customers to work how they wanted to work. And finally, as we have this investment, we were also delivering a state-of-the-art infrastructure or architecture for the company. And it's interesting to have these three goals because quite often there are conflicts around them. They don't always go hand in hand. So that's one of the things that we needed to manage as we went through. So I'll just put next around the steps that we ran. Generally, we had a three-step process. There's a great quote from Steve Jobs who says, you have to start with the customer experience and then work backwards to the technology. And that's certainly what we did. We started off really to have a deep understanding and learn what our customers are saying about us. So the first step isn't actually that difficult. It takes quite a bit of time. It can take quite a bit of budget if you use an external agency, which we did, and I would also highly recommend because they have the specialism to run the process, ask the right questions. We found also that customers were a lot more open and giving feedback to a third party rather than when we asked. And as well as running the interviews, there's also quite a large piece of work to consolidate and create the learnings of your current others experience. What are the moments of truth? What are the moments of pain? What are customers really concerned about? The second step is a bit more difficult. You you have a few constraints. You know, we have constraints around your imagination, how much you can imagine what the service should be to customers. You have some internal constraints that you can't always avoid, and you have or can be faced with institutional resistance around doing things in a different way, which we certainly found. So for me, my advice would be on this stage, you need to build a strong team that has good credibility internally to manage all of those resistance, but also to come up with value-added suggestions that are based in real-world scenarios. And then finally, the most complicated bit is the build. It's by far and away the most difficult part of the process, because you know you face exactly the same issues that every single project has ever faced since projects began: changing requirements, overrunning, late delivery, etc. But they were compounded by us by having this very, very strong ambition to transform the experience, and also having a technical desire to revamp our architecture. So for us, it was a real challenge on this to make sure we kept on track. So that's sort of how we approached it. Let me just talk through now some of the general trends that we wanted to incorporate. The first one is around personalization. It's not necessarily new for insurance. It's something that all customers are looking at. For us, the way we chose to interpret what personalization means was to allow the customer the freedom to choose their own journey, their own steps. Our positioning in the experience was we wanted to be seen as a partner. We weren't prescriptive. We weren't telling customers, you must do this, then this, then this, but really to give them the choice. For us, digital was a great tool for that because it enables another choice. We wanted to allow them to use digital when it mattered, and for them to get the benefits they can have from a digital platform: speed, accuracy, integration, out-of-hours assistance, etc., but also retain the human element. I think here you see banks have done a good job generally because they have online experience, but also still branches in the shop. I saw last year that Orange in France were launching some financial services, and what enabled them to do very well was the fact, as well as being digitally native and having all the technical capabilities, they also have, of course, branches in many high streets to allow customers to pop in and have that personalized experience. The second one here, and this is a great quote that I like from the Financial Times, and what the guy who wrote the article was trying to say is that people generally only speak to their insurance companies when something goes wrong. So it's not always the great starting point to a conversation. Of course, sometimes as an insurer, you have to say no. So what we tried to do was to find some added value that provides something extra for the customer beyond the core value of what the product is doing. So again, we try and avoid becoming a commodity, and we want to not only talk about price and risk, but also some value-added services to increase engagement, satisfaction, and for us, of course, ultimately the retention of the customer. Here you can see some examples in the health industry. I think generally in Italy, for their health insurance, offer a babysitting service for their customers. So where there's parents with 2 children or more, you can phone up, you have the service for someone to come around and look after the child, enabling you to take the other one to the hospital. The next one was transparency. The guy, Ryan Burrell from Harvard, sums it up with a quote here, but also he was saying that when customers are separated from the processes that create value for them, they feel like less effort went into the service. So you really need to show the value of what you're doing. He also says it's those companies that are good but not great, that have some inconsistency in the service, that benefit most from transparency. And that was certainly for us. One of the quotes I really remember from the research we did for the first phase was, one of the brokers said, when I don't hear anything from Euler Hermes, I assume you're doing nothing. So it was eye-opening for us about the benefits that we could have from introducing the transparency of what we do and to showcase better the steps that go into what we offer. So I'll talk a little bit more about what we can do in transparency now. For us, we found a great way to actually not only reduce our workload, but also to increase the customer experience. So as I said at the beginning, our product is a very high touch point. So actually, unlike P&C, customers are not automatically insured for all of their risks when they buy the policy. they are obliged under the terms to request specific credit limit requests. This is an insured amount for each company they trade with above a certain amount. We then assess individually the risk of each of those. So we receive around about 20,000 credit limit requests every single day across our group. And each of those takes, we're required to look into the risk itself individually and assess whether we will grant that request or not. So we're around about 90% acceptance, which means, of course, unfortunately, that 10% we have to say no. And what we saw was when we're not very clear or when we're not transparent in the reasons for our decision, it actually creates many problems for our customers, but also for ourselves. We get around about 90,000 inbound requests a year of customers not understanding our decision. It's the second most reason why customers complain to us and want to contact us. So what we did was we found an artificial intelligence company. It generates natural language, which means that we can explain to customers the reasons why we can't take the decision in human, understandable, everyday language. Before, we would try and have automatic text, but actually what we have is we have a huge amount of data on our systems that is the reason for why we take a decision, but we just didn't have the time because of the effort to explain in every single case why. So having the software that actually allows us to automate that really both improves the experience, but also saves us quite a significant amount of time in servicing the customer. So if we look a little bit around the benefits we see from the new architecture and what we get from digital and having a more modern infrastructure, there's many things you get from the technology. So, you know, by being cloud first, you increase your scalability and resilience, of course. The architecture being component-based and API increases greatly the reliability compared to what we had before. As I said, our previous platform was launched in 2001, 6 years before the first iPhone. So it's no surprise to see that the old platform was not available on a mobile device. So now, of course, anytime, anywhere, through any device is a big step forward for our customers. We also improved a lot the quality through the use of automated tools such as GitLab, which improved the delivery of the software. But the one I think is really important here for us was actually the ability to attract the top talent, because as a niche industry, you know, people are not queuing outside the door to come and work for Euler Hermes. It's not a company or an industry that people really know very well. So actually having a first-class environment allows us to attract some really great developers. And if you really want to deliver a great experience, having great people working on that is a huge advantage. So I just want to spend a little bit of time now talking about some of the advice that I would give to someone who was going through the same approach. You know, we combine the CX, we talked about learning the lessons, defining a great to-be experience with your customers, co-creating all the way through. But actually, you know, bringing the CX and defining it and having the right technology is not enough. The first point I've sort of written is stay focused. And what I mean by this is you can't think that the job is done just because you've designed the experience. It's really the start. And you need to pay attention here. We had a team of around about 60 people that were working on the project. And it's important that they all know and understand the goal. It's very easy for people to take what they believe is the right decision, either to save a bit of cost or to ship some code quicker. But actually, a culmination of a few of those put together can really erode the experience that you want to deliver. So the changes are quite small, and really you have to keep on top of those. That brings me nicely to my next point, which is UX. So for us, CX was customer experience, and that was omni-channel, covering all interactions online and offline. When we talk about UX here, of course, it's user experience, which is focused on the online. So really here we made it a very core activity. It wasn't something we did up front. It wasn't only a focus on the UI and the look and feel of the screens, but really to define an experience. For us, it was vital that we engaged our customers throughout this process. It's quite a change for us culturally. It can also create some problems logistically and practically. Depending on your company, of course, you will have your own specific issues you may face. But for me, I would definitely say it's worthwhile to A, make it a core activity, and B, check all the time with your customers around the experience. And of course, when you look at UX, the small details really matter, and getting them wrong really creates a very clunky experience, which completely kills what you're trying to achieve. And then the last point, of course, when making any transformational change, it's really important to look at communication. For us, we had very strong support from our board of management. It was a key part of the company strategy. And when you needed to make some of those difficult changes, or as I said at the beginning, some competing needs or interests from some stakeholders around, is it more important to deliver state-of-the-art architecture, or is it more important to deliver a great experience? Having strong support at senior management is really helpful for that. And finally, it's really key to communicate, and especially the why. When you ask people to change what they're doing, it's much better if they understand why they need to make that change. So some of you have probably seen the video from Simon Sinek around not just talking about the how and the what, but also on the why. For us, that was also important that we explained not just the why of the project, but why are we asking some people to make changes. So we made a huge change. The experience from what we deliver now compared to what customers were receiving from a platform that was 18 years old has been completely different. And so far, we have not had one complaint about it. I was personally expecting some more, because when you look at the technology adoption curve, 50% of the population generally is laggards or late adopters, so I was expecting some resistance from those. So probably they were desperate for a change because our platform was a little bit old, but I strongly believe that by focusing on the customer and making them a key part of the project really, really worked. So summary, I would say, is that technology really can offer new ways for you to engage with customers and for them to engage with you, your service, your company, or your brand. We try to focus on what added the most value. So it's really important that when you work on this, you really understand what your customers are concerned about. We ran around about 220 in-depth qualitative interviews, and then we cross-referenced that with our annual NPS results, and of course the feedback we have throughout the project. It's not a one-off exercise. It's something that really, really needs to become part of business as usual. For us, our next steps are to increase the level of innovation we offer even further. We went through the agile delivery, which means we went to MVP or just above MVP as defined by our countries, and we have many things that we would like to do beyond that. And of course, we will listen to what our customers are saying and provide the services that they are asking for. And finally, I spoke before about the touch point. We had a lot of focus on the risk side, because that's around about 80% of our customer interaction. The next focus for Q1 is to look at the claims experience as well. So I'm really excited to hear about Matt and what Metromile have been working on as well. So thank you very much for the time to present. I hope you found it useful. I'm here for any questions that you may have at the end. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. That was wonderful, and we've had quite a few questions come in for you, so do get ready with that. Given what you are coming to look at next as it relates to claims, I think the next talk is going to be of particular interest to you, and you may in fact have some questions of your own. Next, we're going to hear from Matt Walsh at Metromile Insurance, who will be sharing Metromile's journey of creating a suite of automation and intelligence products for auto insurance claims. Matt has been in the insurance industry for 14 years and has held a variety of claims, operations, and technology leadership roles. Matt is a Six Sigma black belt and has extensive experience in creating and optimizing claims processes and technology. Matt currently holds the position of Director of Innovation at Metromile, where he and his team are focused on developing and delivering products that utilize telematics, AI, and machine learning and automation to create the world's best claims experience at the industry's lowest cost. And while we switch over, just keep those questions coming in the Q&A tool. We'll take them all together at the end of Matt's presentation.
Thank you for the introduction, Sean. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Excellent. Screen okay, Sean?
Yes, we have it.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Today, I wanted to share with you our journey to creating a fully automated and touchless end-to-end claims experience. But before I do that, I did want to introduce Metromile as a company to help set the stage and context for the journey we're about to cover. So, Metromile is a late-stage startup founded in 2011 with a belief that there's an underserved market for low mileage drivers, that people who drive less should pay less, and that those drivers should not subsidize high mileage and high risk drivers. The product that we offer is pay per mile insurance, where customers pay a flat base rate and then pennies per mile driven. We started off as an agent with policies underwritten and claims serviced by a third-party administrator. However, after a few years, we realized that if we wanted to offer a better price and claims experience, that we'd have to become a full-fledged insurance company, which we did back in 2016. From the very beginning, we focused on a digital-first experience and carried that same focus into building a claims organization and claims experience from the ground up. We knew that in order to remain competitive, we had to really operate more efficiently than our other carriers and competitors, while also providing an exceptional product and experience, which led to our claims mission, as Sean mentioned, to create the world's best claims experience at the industry's lowest cost. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll share with you our journey towards making that mission a reality. So our journey started by reviewing the claims process from start to finish, looking for areas that were ripe for opportunity to reduce costs, but also had room to improve the customer and/or adjuster experience through automation and intelligence. What you're seeing here are the claim segments and technology that we focused on to drive successful intelligence and automation. I'll provide a high-level overview of each and the importance of each area, and then we'll dive a bit deeper into the coming slides to provide some more information. The first focus area is digital first notice of loss. Automation really starts by collecting the right data early in the claims process, which in turn will allow for proper decisions to automate or not to automate earlier in the claims life cycle and drive automation flows downstream. Driving digital first notice of loss not only allows for the collection of structured data, but it also starts the customer in a digital channel and gets them engaged for downstream digital interactions and experiences. Second, one of the most important qualifiers for automation is fraud, or at least identifying fraud. We want to identify and prevent potentially fraudulent claims early in the claims process from being assigned to any automated path. Using our fraud models, we can help identify potentially fraudulent claims immediately, take that information to account, and during claim segmentation and assignment, route them accordingly and prevent automation. The third portion is automated claim segmentation and assignment. So using business rules that take into account inputs from both digital first notice loss and our fraud models, we can automatically make a decision to expedite and assign to self-service automation, or assign to adjuster, or assign to our specialized handling unit. And in those cases where fraud is identified as a high-risk item, we can then go into an in-depth fraud investigation. Lastly, for those claims that do qualify, they're assigned to one of our claims automation paths. Automation can take an entire claim or just one exposure. The path that is assigned is based on the information taken from the customer during the first notice of loss. And the potential paths include repair and rental, non-repair and cashing out, and total loss. Additionally, claims or exposures that did not initially qualify can be manually assigned to automation flows by adjusters later in the claims life cycle after resolving any issues or fraud concerns, which I'll share a little bit more on later. So, digital first notice of loss. Online or digital first note of loss is not a new concept, but really, the industry has not provided a great product or customer experience. Customers want to file a claim quickly, seamlessly, and at the time they find convenient. Online forms are all too often static and ask questions that aren't relevant or fail to collect the necessary information needed to make automation decisions downstream. And in some cases, they're not integrated with any claim systems and only generate an email to a carrier for a claims processor to later create the claim manually. Gathering the proper information at ethanol is critical to driving automation and detecting fraud. It's also the first digital experience in the claims process that your customer will experience and can have a significant impact on your customer deciding if they have trust interacting with you digitally downstream in the automated process. Here at Metromile, we've developed a rules-based, dynamic, and adaptive mobile experience that integrates with downstream claim systems and enables customers to report an accident, request services, share photos, videos, and other information from the scene of an accident or from their house or wherever they find convenient with the convenience of their mobile app or desktop device. Digital first notice loss not only helps feed our fraud models and claim segmentation to qualify claims for automation, but it significantly reduces the cost of claims intake and the associated loss adjustment expense with that. Next, I wanted to share a little bit about our fraud model and the importance of identifying fraud in building automation processes. According to the FBI, the total cost of insurance for fraud for non-health insurance is estimated to be more than about $40 billion a year. Since fraud has such a significant impact on the industry and a company's loss ratio, early fraud detection is extremely important. And even more important when you're removing a human adjuster, touch point, and assigning claims or exposures directly to automation early in the claims lifecycle. Metromile has invested heavily in fraud detection and modeling, checking for fraud at various points during the claims lifecycle. The fraud model that we use immediately after first notice of loss, which we here at Metromile refer to or nicknamed Dolores, is a sophisticated and continuously evolving set of AI models that analyzes hundreds of variables to predict the likelihood of fraud and is used in the automated segmentation and assignment process to qualify claims for automation. In simple terms, claims are given a score based on the inputs and then lumped into three categories: low, medium, or high. Low scoring claims are eligible for immediate automation, while medium and high claims are assigned to adjusters. And in the case of high, as I previously mentioned, our special investigation team is automatically notified for consultation on the claim. The important thing to note is that this fraud model is continuously evolving. It's constantly learning with input from the adjusters and from our data science team. Finally, we get to the automation portion of the claim. So what I'm showing here are a few examples of how our customers interact with Ava, which is our automation suite. Ava is our virtual adjuster and assistant and is the face of our suite of self-service and automation technology. Ava interacts with customers through our mobile or desktop application and can also communicate with body shops during the repair process and send assignments to salvage vendors for total loss salvage pickups. Ava can request photos, send assignments to repair facilities, assist a customer in setting up a rental reservation, manage the repair and rental process, including providing updates to customers, and issue payment to individuals or shop upon the completion of an approved estimate. A little bit about the story on this here. We initially had built Ava with the intent to automate and replace what most companies hand off or assign to expressed or centralized handling units, specifically lower cost resources that handle lower complexity and or lower risk claims. Where the automated system would work with the customer to self-serve the claim from first notice of loss to payment is what we started calling Ava end-to-end claims. Shortly after creating that product, we realized that there was still a segment of claims that did not qualify for automation and were assigned to adjusters. These claims had some fraud indicators or risk associated. Typically, we would see them come in with a medium fraud score, but often they were resolved with one touch point from a human adjuster to clarify any issues and or resolve the fraud indicators, which led us to Ava Everywhere, which allowed adjusters to manually assign claims or exposures to the automated system after resolving any outstanding issues. Ava would simply pick up where the adjuster left off. This freed up adjuster capacity and allowed our automated system to handle claims that no longer needed human intervention and our adjusters to focus on those claims that required their attention. An important thing to note is that we must continuously learn from the products that we deploy and how adjusters and customers interact with the technology. You need to have monitoring, reporting, and a good feedback loop in place to ensure that your product evolves and meets customers' need. And when we speak of customers, we're talking about both internal and external customers, our adjusters, our employees, and also our external customers, which are policyholders. What we found is that every claim is a straight path. Customers change their mind or situations change. Automation flows must be dynamic and allow for customers to change paths when needed. Additionally, we found that customers are becoming more likely to adapt the technology and interact digitally with us, but there are times when they need assistance or education. It's important that customers have the ability to reach a human when necessary, and for the short term, will remain an important factor in providing great service. Overall, claims automation at Metromile has had a very positive impact from both a bottom line perspective and to the adjuster and customer experience. And I do want to say Globant has been a great partner on our path to automation. I really hope you found our journey insightful. There's a lot of information here, and it was educational. And I'm looking forward to the questions that come up in the Q&A. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Sean for the Q&A session.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. That was a wonderful presentation. And I know that at least some other folks who may be on this call or definitely that I've worked with before will be a little bit envious of what you were just showing us that you've got in place at Metromile. That's very excellent technology. So we do have questions. Please feel free to continue to add questions in the Q&A section. We've got a number there right now, and I will be, I have a few from in my room here too. So we'll go ahead and work through those questions. Interesting. It looks like I can't share my screen and look at the question window at the same time. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we'll go ahead with the questions. All right, so let's continue on, Matt, with you a bit, because I think it flows nicely from what we were just hearing. So what kind of information are you using to feed your AI models to detect fraud? And how is that affected by California consumer privacy or GDPR or other types of regulation and data privacy that go into that?
Yeah, I will start by saying privacy is of utmost importance. We do take all of those factors into consideration. I can't necessarily go into all the in-depth details of what's fed into our AI models, but we'll say it's varying different touch points, which may include information that we have on the policyholder that's readily available through our own policy information, including also outside factors of information that may be available from partners such as like LexisNexis or ISO or other public databases, or databases where that information is reasonably obtained. We've also looked at different patterns between year, make, model, time reported, types of loss location, things along those lines that do that. So it's a great question. I wish I could share more on it, but I will tell you that it's taken into consideration.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So let's go up to Steve then, and we'll send a question in for you. So you had mentioned 3 competing goals, and I imagine that they occasionally have conflicts. So what's an example of when you had a conflict in the competition of those 3 goals, and how did you work through that?
So we set ourselves a challenge of never putting our complexity in front of the customer, and also trying to give them complete certainty on the insurance coverage they had. And we had a vision and experience where we could integrate 9 screens in the old system into one. And we had some challenges from the IT that what we were asking for was not compliant with the architecture of the 2B sites, because of the way we wanted the APIs to work. So there is no magic bullet to fix this. There was a lot of internal discussion. I said the importance of having a strong senior management buying of what you're trying to achieve was really important and crucial for us. And in the end, what was decided after what I would say was probably too long a period of time to reach that decision, but the decision was we need to redo the architecture to deliver the experience that was promised. So really, I'd say having a very clear goals and priorities up front of what you're trying to achieve, having a strong vision and strong support. Hopefully, as you go through those discussions between you, you can work it out to find the right solution.
Okay, excellent. So to follow on from that, what guidelines did you use to avoid those clunky interfaces and to improve the interaction between your customers and policyholders and the interfaces that you were providing them?
So I wouldn't say we had any specific guidelines we followed. Again, we started with a strong vision. Like I said, we were very focused on what we wanted to achieve. I would probably give 3 bits of advice. One is think, one is cheat, and one is ask your customers. So for think, I'd say think very carefully about what you want to achieve. Don't drive straight into the details. Think about the long-term view of what you're trying to deliver for each feature. Definitely cheat and look at best practice elsewhere. When we looked at our onboarding, we looked at the 3 general approaches of the tour, the setup, or the learn by doing. And we basically looked at which companies were doing best and stole the ideas that worked for us. And finally, ask your customers, when you want to deliver something, come up with a proposal, ask very early, and test it in real-world scenarios, not just follow the test cases you define. You know, we wanted a system where it was very open and customers could switch easily when they saw something. So we tried very hard to make sure we deliver that. But in terms of guidelines, there wasn't any prescriptive guidelines I would say to follow. I mean, there's a whole wealth of UX literature out there. You just need to work out which are the ones that apply most relevant for your project.
That's awesome. I was starting, as I was asking the question, thinking of an answer myself, and I definitely was going to have think on there. Think included. It's an active team, a sport almost, to work through these types of problems. But I love the framework that you just provided. Think, cheat, looking at best practices from elsewhere, and then talk to your customers and get out of the building and go and find out what people want and need, and do that as early as possible, and then in a continuous way, so that you're really being guided by them and delivering what they're looking for. Is this something that you just came up with, or is this something that you've cheated to bring into your vocabulary at this point?
I mean, the three things I said, I just wrote down myself now as the question popped up, but I think they're more or less what we followed. I mean, I'm definitely a strong believer in thinking about everything you do, because you save yourself a lot of time if you consider very carefully what you're trying to do. We have meetings here where we spend an hour designing the layout of one drop-down list, because we know some customers have high volumes and it needs to work for them. Some customers have small volumes and we need to find the balance that works. So, you know, it's just a process that seemed to work for us. And when we started looking at the big topics, you know, UX is not a new thing. There are, as I said, there's great experiences everywhere. And we just went out and looked at, it wasn't that we found the company and said, hey, they do great UX, let's follow them. It's let's look and see what examples there are and what can we take and what is relevant for us and our customers. And again, know what your customers are looking for and what they want to achieve.
Okay, thank you. So let's go back and we'll bounce back over to Matt. So looking ahead a little bit then, do you think that there'll be a time when AI will be capable of deciding whether it was fraud or not in a high likelihood of fraud or it's a medium that you imposed on it to avoid the error? I think what this is getting at is, do you see less and less involvement from humans in your process? Is this something where AI is going to take on more and more and do so with more and more skill and accuracy?
Yeah, I will say that the model's continuously learning. You know, now we've kind of erred a little bit more on the side of caution to avoid some of the potential risk associated with moving claims downstream without a human touch point. I will say, you know, we've improved our model a number of different times and have different variations, and we've been tracking the improvements that we've made to correctly identify whether a claim is fraudulent or not, and have successfully reduced some of the false positives that we've indicated without letting too much potential fraud slip by with a low score. Just to clarify, I mean, I think maybe some of the question got it here was whether or not we limit medium to automation. Really what we do is only low scoring fraudulent claims are initially qualified to just be automated right off the bat. So right after first notice of loss, you know, during claim segmentation, it would qualify for self-service automation. In the event it's medium or high, those claims later on could still eventually go to automation, but at this point would require human intervention first to clear up any of those issues or indicators. And I think what I mentioned, you know, in the final slide was that we have this component AVA everywhere. So, you know, some of these claims come in and they have a potential indicator for a cautious some caution around like unrelated prior damage and or other types of flags, and adjusters can typically clear those up pretty quickly. I think eventually we'll be able to take more of those flags and really qualify whether or not they lead towards a higher indicator of fraud or not, and potentially be able to move more claims immediately to automation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Now, just I have a little follow-up of my own here. I mean, as you look at FNOL, people are often very emotional while making a claim. Do you offer a path for policyholders to call in and to speak to someone if that's what they need? And then if so, how do you get those FNOL reports into the pipeline for AVA Everywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. Empathy is probably one of the #1 things we see from companies doing reviews on the digital FNOL experience. Yes, we do offer a phone first notice of loss, and what we try to do is mirror those similar types of questions and or information that we get from the digital platform that we would also get in the phone. And what we do is we do take that information in. So even claims that are taken over the phone route the same way through our claim segmentation and or fraud models. They're ingested the same way. The key thing that I think is important to the digital FNOL piece is that customers that likely start in a digital manner will continue in a digital experience and or manner. So we do in most cases, and what we're talking about here too, a lot of times, you know, we're looking at lower complexity claims, not significant losses, you know, where potentially injuries or you know, catastrophic things have happened.
Yeah.
So more of those, we've seen more of those less complex losses go through FNOL, and some of our more complex ones go through the phone.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you. Well, unfortunately we're running up to the end of our time, and I know there were still some great questions in the Q&A. So we'll have to put that, unfortunately, to another time. But before we go, I just wanted to thank Steve and Matt for all that they've shared with us, for all of you attendees for the great questions that drove such a good discussion that we ran out of time, unfortunately. I also want to thank the team at Globant for helping make this happen. Sneha Debnath, who persevered in organizing this webinar from its conception in February to its delivery today. Our many colleagues who engaged their networks to help us find such great speakers for today. Anna Denusiar, who handled all the final logistics for today. Trish Martin, who adapted the digital maturity framework for use in my introduction. Without all of you, Steve, Matt, Globant team, and the attendees today, we couldn't have had this event. Now, just before we go, speaking of that digital maturity framework, do look out for a follow-up. At some point after this webinar, we'll get a link out to you to try the self-assessment. It'll take about 5 minutes to complete, and you'll gain some perspective on your current strengths and weaknesses and inspire some meaningful and substantive conversations with your colleagues. So thanks again for attending this webinar. A recording will be made available so that you can share it with your colleagues. Also, you can find all of us on LinkedIn, so that we could continue the conversation there if you like. And you can also reach out to me personally by email. So thanks again, Steve and Matt. Have a great day, everyone.